Welcome back, everyone, to Mulakat. We've been having riveting, incredible conversations with guests from across the world, especially the United States of America. We're here in Godlywood Studios, and we have actually had the fortune of already filming over 225 episodes. That's amazing. And to think that right now we're global and being watched by so many of you. So we thank you so much for your commitment and dedication. This is something new that we're doing. It's a little bit out of the box thinking, especially for us Indians. But then again, I'm a little bit of a half-breed, so it's okay. And I just like to explore different things. I want to learn more about cultures and about people. I don't want to be stuck in just one way of thinking, even though it's always right. But I think that it's just so important for us to learn from each other, especially individuals who have been through a lot and have traveled. We've been talking a lot about relationship. If you recall, we talked about relationship with God. That was very profound. We've also talked about relationship with ourselves. That's a hard one. But today we're going to talk about relationship with others. That's the trick. Mm-hmm. Wonderful and beautiful Angela Holton, founder of Love Sanctuary, inspiring speaker, and author, and so much more. It's something interesting because in India, relationship is so important. As you've seen here in the campus of the BK headquarters, right? If you don't have a good relationship, you're not getting anything done. And the most important thing is to be able to love individuals from a genuine place. Mm-hmm. Some of us can love people from a place like, at least let me smile to get something from you. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it leaves a mark in your heart where you feel genuine or feel true. Relationships get you places. If you are good to people, people will be good to you. Mm-hmm. When we bump into individuals who test us, as you said in one of our conversations, the meaning of relationship to you is teacher. And there are so many teachers in our lives today, right? And the people. And in my personal capacity, I do want to love everyone the same. And I wish for people to love me back. But I've realized that I don't inherit that completely. It doesn't matter how good I feel I've been to a particular person. I don't know, there's something deeply hidden there. Mm-hmm. I don't get it back in return. Have you ever given so much to a particular person and that's the last person that gives you back what you want or what you think you deserve? But a stranger comes from the outside and gives you everything. And even when they're giving it to you, you don't know how to honor it because you're still thinking of the person that you've given it to. Let's go into this.
Really interesting because as you're saying that, wanting that love from that one person who won't give it to you. Yeah. So then it goes back to what we talked about in the other episode about our selfish sort of love. One of the things that we have to learn how to do is to not take things personally. So if that person isn't giving me the love that I want, it has less to do with me than it does about that other person. That's what it means to love that other person in spite of whatever it is that they're doing. And we have to be careful how we talk about loving other people because loving other people doesn't mean that we have to be their best friend and we have to put up with them treating us like. But I want to just make a point of us being really careful about what it means to love other people because loving other people does not require us to put up with any and everything from that other person.
You see, that's completely different in Indian culture because we put up with a lot. So is that right or wrong?
Well, what I want to be clear about, and particularly this, so as a psychologist, so I wear the hat of pastologist where I merge psychology and ministry. And so in ministry, we teach about loving unconditionally and forgiving, which Angela talks a lot about. But let's say that I have someone who's abusing me. I don't think to love that person requires me to stay in a relationship where that person is abusing me. That is not love. And so even though I can look at that person and say, I'm not going to take it personally that they're slapping me in my face, that has to do with their own anger issues. But I'm not going to stay and tolerate it because that then is not loving myself. Mm-hmm. So loving that person is caring enough about them that you want them to raise themselves to their highest self or being or vibration as well.
Okay, well, let's break this down to really practical stuff. Mm-hmm. You've just married a wonderful guy. The mother-in-law hates you. Mm-hmm. What do you do? And she's living with you in the house.
I look at, again, every relationship shows up as a teacher. And so it's easy to love when someone's amicable, friendly, kind. But if we really want to love unconditionally, and learn how to love that way and love how Source loves us, then that mother-in-law has to show up, right? So
say that again.
The mother,
wow.
Yeah, she has to show up. We can't say we love unconditionally when everyone's nice and kind and, affable. No, can you love the people that are difficult to love?
So relationship with others, are you then saying that they don't have to all come in beautiful packages and sweet packages, but they can also actually come in very intensely harsh packages, which are actually helping you to raise your level of love?
That's how we learn. I believe that's how we learn how to love and how Source loves us unconditionally. Can you love someone who's more challenging to love? And I'm not saying, that you're not dealing. I'm not going to say that you deal with the abuse or someone who's hurting you, but, I believe a lot in compassion, and I believe in looking at someone else's story. And so I am able to find compassion and love for someone who is I'll just say enemy for the sake of a word, because I look at who that person, how they became that way. And I try to see how they arrived to where they are. And when I see them as a child and the relationships they were subjected to, it helps me find a semblance of love and compassion. And that's the best I can do. Do they have to be in my space? No. Do I have to like them? No. But loving myself, I'm going to choose to forgive them because I love myself. I'm choosing to give them compassion. Like, I believe that you're showing up in that mother-in-law's life to also be her teacher. And so, we can push back and say, she's this way, she's that way. But if we want to teach her love, then we have to show her what that looks like. And it's a choice. We can always choose whether we're going to go into that energy that she's in, or we're going to show her our energy. And if we believe that love is the most powerful source and the most powerful energy, then that energy, she's going to be drawn to that energy. So as I said to you, Terilyn, emotional boundaries, physical boundaries are created, but you are also serving as her teacher. And you can't kick her out the house, right? You can't ignore.
If it's the mother to the son, he can't say anything against his mother in the house. Despite if the mother is even misbehaving, he has to stay quiet, and the wife is supposed to accept whatever the mother-in-law is doing. How do you handle that? Because this is an important relationship, especially in Indian culture, because you have to respect the mother-in-law. That is the mother of your husband. What are your points to help? What are your points to help our ladies here in this country to see how they can cope better with these relationships, especially with in-laws?
And so I'm going to, since you're talking practically, and having been married, my mother-in-law died a few years after we were actually married, but she wasn't the most pleasant person at times. And I wouldn't take what she said personally. She cared for me, but she had a way of speaking. And I just didn't take it personally. And I think that that's fine on one level. But when you're living in the home with someone day in and day out, and we know that our elders have the respect and you can't say anything to them, I think this is where you do practice what Angela is saying. But I believe you also have to go back inwardly and keep asking for strength from the sacred. That's one thing that you have to do. I wonder as well, is there a way of opening up to have a conversation? And you can tell me based on your culture, to have a conversation.
It's not always easy.
It's not always easy.
It's not always easy.
But I think that there's slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah.
And so I would invite people to think about, how do we slowly show and demonstrate love for that other person, that yes, you may talk about the way I cooked my lentil soup today, but I'm just going to smile. I'm not going to get angry and feed into that. I'm going to give you back love, right? But I also know that mother-in-laws can be very demanding.
Yeah,
and
they can
continue to pick, as I'm beating the table here. But it is a matter of continuing the practice, I believe, of loving. But I think there has to be a way to have the conversation, because in order for it to change.
But in America, that's so easy for us to have a conversation.
It's not always easy.
It's not always easy
but
here.
I think we have to try.
Yeah.
Let's give some other practical strategies. If you're saying this conversation can happen, so let's think about the woman and how she can care for herself in the midst of that. And I think that's when you have to create a self-care practice. Whether that is definitely spending time in your meditation and gathering as much peace as you can every morning, every afternoon, every evening. And what makes you feel good? You know, if she's depleting your cup, how are you going to fill up your cup?
Beautiful.
What makes you feel good? And if you're not getting it from your partner or your mother-in-law, it's our own responsibility, right? It's not the mother-in-law's responsibility to make her happy, nor is it her husband's.
Yeah.
So it's knowing thyself and knowing what she needs to fill up her own cup, and you know, each morning fill that cup up. If that's going for a walk, a meditation, whatever that is.
But because we're talking about loving the other person, I think that it's so easy for us to find the negativity in other people. And I know that it can be overwhelming if you have an individual who's constantly giving you negative vibrations.
Yeah.
But I often say to my clients, can you find at least one thing that's good about that person? One thing that you delight in. You know, if you can start to do that, it actually changes your attitude towards that other person.
Well, let me add and tell you a story. There was a young girl. She was in a very, very difficult marriage because of the mother-in-law. And she went to many friends to talk about, what can I do to make this relationship work? It's really hard. I give her hot chapati. I cook every way she wants me to cook. I take care of her son. Her grandchildren are fine. And she treats me like a maid, and she yells and she looks at me with bad eyes. I put the food on the table with so much love and a smile. And I can see she's still this feeling of animosity or hate against me. And then her friend, one very wise friend, told her, well, have you ever had negative thoughts about her? She says, oh yes, every day. So I think there's such an important role here for us to consider that sometimes I think the veil or the barrier between having healthy relationships with one another has a lot to do with the thoughts that we're thinking about each other. You can feel it when you go in front of someone that there's something up. You know, even though they're smiling, hey, Sister Jenna, how are you? Like, oh, I'm fine. But something, there's this push and pull. Something's not right. And if you're really honest with yourself, even when I have encounters with people that I've had a waste thought, I will tell myself at that moment, I know I've not had a good thought, but I don't want to continue. And that might be where I go to look for what is that one thing that is still there, God's self, that is sitting there. And I think that's really important.
Because God is in all of us, right? And so if we do that, and I know it's sometimes hard to really see the God in other people,
some folks,
but if you say God is in there as well, you know, you brought up a really interesting thing, because I think one of the things that we also have to do is sit in intention for that person, even when we don't like them. So I remember once I had an incident of, I worked at this place, and this woman just really did not like me and another therapist because she thought we were controlling what they were doing at this particular facility. And I remember that I just began to pray for her because I had not done anything for her.
One.
She just thought that we were taking over their particular unit where I worked, and we were only doing what the top down told us to do. But she just, whenever we would come into a room, and I just simply began to pray for her, and all of a sudden, she just started contacting us approaching us in a different way.
Fantastic.
So if we sit in a space, because it's about loving others and our relationship with other people, sit in that intention.
I just want to go back, as I said in one of the first other episodes, is I think it still shows up as our teacher, and it brings us back to ourselves. For me, I just always have to go back to myself when it comes to relationships. And this may be a little controversial, but you know, with the mother-in-law treating the daughter-in-law this way, does this mother-in-law remind me of anyone else in my past? And have I given permission or allowance for people to treat me a certain way? Because the way you describe the mother-in-law it's abusive and it's disrespectful. And so I would have to look at myself and say, do I feel worthy of being treated better? You know, relationships show up to teach us.
Yeah.
So I would look at it as, if she's not respecting me, how am I not respecting myself?
The people that are our greatest test papers, would you say that they are the energy that's actually signaling to us what we need to rise above, right? Because if I'm I've been in a situation with a very small group of people, and for the life of me, no matter what I communicate or try to articulate, they hold a perception about me, and it serves them and it feeds them. And they have also a tribal connection about that with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go into their vortex and I'll feel it. And I feel like I don't want to play the game of hypocrisy here. I really don't need to be in this space. But I'm just not quite sure what it is that's needed to break through this, because everyone here seems so intelligent. And for the life of me, I'm not quite sure what it serves to think down about me for you to feel big about you.
Yeah, and what I would say is not to get caught up in what they think and feel, because as you were saying that, I had a flashback.
I'm Pisces, girl. I am so sensitive.
Well,
oh my God.
But we cannot help ourselves.
You know, here's what I would say about that, because you were reminding me of an incident. There was a church in which I was serving as their interim pastor, and every time I would go in the choir room to pray with the choir before going out to service, there was this energy that I just felt, because there was some stuff going on in the church. But I could not feed into that, because I have a higher power that I serve. And I always had to remind myself of my purpose.
Beautiful.
Why am I here? What is it that I need to do? And who are my examples? And so for me, as a Christian, my example is Jesus. And as long as I look to what I consider to be the light, whatever these people are doing over here is of no concern to me, because I have to stay true to myself. Mm. And so I would invite you to do the same, is that you turn your light on.
Oh, absolutely.
And manifest the best part of who you are. And ultimately, even if it's one person in that group, ultimately they're going to see your light shining and they're going to say, she has something I want.
Yeah.
I know, one thing Oprah often says is that we all want to feel valued. We all want to feel understood. And we all have the desire to feel like we matter. And I think that when we come up against people, we're human. And even we can walk around and say we don't care what people think of us, but we want to be liked. We do. We want to be embraced. And I think that's human nature. Someone else's light, or they don't want to dim your light. But it doesn't negate how it might make us feel.
But I think we choose. Our feelings are choices.
Absolutely. It is a choice.
Absolutely.
It is a choice. But one of the complexities in businesses, in offices, in families is that we're not transparent with our feelings. And they are complicating these relationships. See, I'm okay if you tell me that you don't like me. Mm-hmm. Then I'm so clear in how we can work this through. But I'm not okay if you don't like me and you're smiling and acting like you are.
Sister Jenna,
I'm just saying, but everything functions on a vibration. Like you said, you walked into that church and you can feel the energy, but you're here for a higher purpose and a higher vibration. But what about those of us who are very, very sensitive? Not that we need the love from others, but the fact that we still need to be stronger within.
Yeah. And that's where you keep
You're
going.
Pisces, I'm a Scorpio. I get it. I get it. We're in our feelings. We're in our feelings a lot.
But here's the thing, and I think that there's something great about having grown up in the South in America, because I knew exactly where I stood with people who looked differently from me. And I didn't need them to tell me that they didn't like me. Now, down south, we are we were like, hi, how you doing? We're waving, we're doing this and that.
And then
but I'm not going to your house to, no. But cross lines, I'm not going to your house for dinner. And that's okay.
Right.
The vibrations are already telling you how that person feels about you.
So don't try to fool yourself.
Smiling
or change
them.
So
I don't need you to tell me that you don't like me.
Yeah.
I just need to be okay with what my purpose is. And so I get it. Yes, I would have loved for everybody in that church to say, Pastor, you're doing a wonderful job.
Fantastic.
But that was not my purpose for being there.
One of the things I think we have touched on is the power of thoughts, like what our thoughts are actually creating as a vibration. And I think that when it comes on to relationship with others, would you both agree that we really have to be honest with our thoughts about the way we feel, not only about ourselves, but about one another?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, every thought has energy, right? So any thought that we're keeping about someone else, what we pay attention to, right? Where thoughts go, energy flows. So if we're thinking of the worst in someone, you're going to bring out the worst.
That's what you're going to get back, yeah.
And to be able to acknowledge that you're feeling that little bit of angst about that person, if you call it out, you can deal with it.
Absolutely.
I can't suppress it. I'm a feeler. And I am.
Feel it.
Yeah, I'm a
well,
feeler.
look, ladies, you are amazing. I want to thank you
so
for
much.
just tolerating being in the studio for this time and for us to really go deep into the whole thing with relationships. I'm going to ask you back because I think it's so important for us to keep dialoguing while we have you here on the mountaintop.
Absolutely.
At Godlywood Studio.
Thank you.
Everyone, I hope you've
us.
enjoyed our chit-chat with the amazing Angela Holton from lovesanctuary.com. We've talked a lot about relationships in these past few episodes. How do we relate with God? It's the easiest one, perhaps. But the relationship with the self and the relationship with others are actually our opportunity to dive deep into what I think is the most important virtue for freedom, honesty with the self. If we can be more honest with ourselves, then we don't care about what others are going to be thinking or not thinking about us. Then we can stand strong and be truthful with that other person, whether they like us or not. So for those of you who are going through really challenging experiences in the relationships, hang tight. You're not alone. We're all in this together. But I do know that there's something very deep inside of all of us that's actually available. And I know it's the source of God's love. It's the source of the power of being honest and true. And as we all have said to all of you and to ourselves, don't dim your light for anyone. Raise your light so bright that everyone around you is just going to keep shining. All right.